What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about what's going on with NHL 21. So this is obviously the annual EA franchise of NHL. Now, we have talks of Madden, we know FIFA. Now, in general, because of the way the world has gone in 2020 so far, obviously game announcements and games just coming out, being talked about, however you want to say it, they've obviously been through quite a lot of different stuff, right? I think even the way EA has handled like the FIFA franchise has been very, very different. In fact, I believe it's coming out like early October this year. So even a game franchise like that, which is normally early September, Madden normally bounces around like the August period. Sometimes it's actually early August. Sometimes it's late August. I believe this year it's late August as well. NHL has always been, and for us fans of the NHL franchise, we know that we always get the short end of the stick, right? I think I'm talking to the choir there, where NHL, it gets announced. It kind of normally gets announced at the NHL awards when they do it, like in Vegas or whenever they do it, and they'll do the cover athlete there, and then they'll kind of sporadically over the summer talk about features, talk about new things. But NHL is definitely the least looked upon franchise, right? Or that's the game franchise that they just don't talk all that much about. Now, again, being an NHL, and you could be saying, okay, well, what's your credentials? For me personally, I've been buying NHL games or getting NHL games for I think like 13, 14 years. So I've been getting it for a very, very long time. I love this franchise. Now, at the same time, I am always a person that says, okay, hey, NHL does normally get features of FIFA, of Madden. They always get those years late. Sometimes, these things of changing how the game operates sometimes takes a very, very long time. Now, this year, again, getting back to like what's going on with this game, where is this game? This year is a little bit different. So remember, last year, like I just said, last year we normally get stuff around the NHL awards. So those are normally in June. Now, I get it. I get that obviously because of what's happened with the world, not just with gaming, but then you also have to think of the actual sports franchises. They've obviously been affected, right? So the NHL franchise, obviously the NHL, like the actual National Hockey League, obviously shutting down, but restarting very, very soon. Restarting hopefully at the end of July or early August. So that's good news, but we don't have the cover athlete. We don't know actually anything about the game. And again, it's normally announced in June. And then I believe last year, July, because I actually made a video on this around July 16th. So I'm going to assume that's the same day. Maybe it was like a day earlier, but around the middle of July is when we got the gameplay trailer. It was a gameplay trailer talking about, and actually I had predicted, like, how they always do okay, here's the 5 things we're going to be working on in the game in this select year. They actually did that last year. They said, okay, here's some, I think it was 3 or 4 things where it's like, okay, here's the things we're going to try and work on for the upcoming, this upcoming game. And remember, the game released in, I believe, early September, like sometime in the September 10th through 15th area. So at this point, I really don't see how it's going to come out in September, to be quite honest with you. I really don't see, again, FIFA, I believe it's like October 9th, somewhere in that early October range. What will be interesting is, okay, because a lot of times actually NHL does come before FIFA. I think sometimes FIFA does beat it, but oftentimes the NHL game franchise, they come out before the FIFA one. So does this game get pushed until like end of October? Another thing you have to think of, it's different because these kind of sports games are very, very different than the normal, just casual, whatever kind of games you want to call it. But, if you're marketing to the sport, okay, if you're actually saying, okay, fans of the sport of hockey, of football, of soccer, of whatever, and you're trying to line it up with when football starts in August and that normally lines up pretty darn well. Hockey, I don't actually know why they normally do it in early September when the season normally starts early October, right? Normally training camps are in September and stuff like that. So for this year, with the normal season not really expected to start until around Christmas, do you do it in October? Do you do it in November? However, with the Stanley Cup, the talk is, okay, well, maybe the playoffs will end around the end of September. So the end of September, it would, hockey would be over. You'd have like October, November would be your off months, and then you would go back to training camp in December. So do they say, okay, actually, September works really well because we're back in the hockey mode, even though it's technically the end of last season, we're still in it. We're going to award the Stanley Cup. It actually makes a lot of sense for this to happen, right? So I'm actually really intrigued or interested into when we're going to get the release date myself. The last thing is, so we had EA Play Live, and like I was saying, okay, so normally at this this point, literally where we are, like July 7th-ish, last year, we had the cover. We had Austin Matthews. We had, I guess, the initial kind of trailer saying this game exists. And then in around a week from now, they did the gameplay, and they said, okay, here's the gameplay for it, and we got to talk about that. Here we are, July 7th. We know nothing. We don't know the cover athlete. We don't know anything about this game. We know absolutely nothing. And I believe their like kind of PR person or their like social media manager, he tweeted, because remember, EA Play Live was a few weeks ago, and it was pretty much, if you guys missed it, you missed literally nothing, right? They didn't talk about pretty much anything. They showed a quick thing about Madden, but they didn't show anything even on FIFA or on NHL. And he had tweeted out and said, hey, we aren't going to talk about our stuff today. EA's not going to talk about our stuff today, but we're going to do it in the coming weeks. Things are going well. And so I guess that's good news. Right? Obviously, you say, okay, well, you're getting all these other games announced from EA. Where are the sports games? Like I said, this year has been, I think just in general, from where they normally put their, like how much they put the stock they put into these games, FIFA is always number one, right? FIFA makes them a ton, like billions of dollars a year with the Ultimate Team, right? It makes them an insane amount of money. Madden is probably second, and then NHL is most likely third. So even the way they've handled the other ones, I think they've actually really gone hard onto Madden this year. For whatever reason, Madden has definitely been the hardcore push that they've done. FIFA has been next to non-existent. Like, we know it's coming out. It's got the release date. We know, how it's going to work kind of with next gen, right? They've done the same thing with Madden. They're going to probably do the same thing with NHL, but they haven't really talked about it. They haven't really shown it. We haven't really gotten anything of FIFA. Now, again, I'm not the biggest fan of the FIFA franchise, the Madden franchise. I think they're solid enough games. Now, again, talking about sports games, when I normally talk about other kinds of games, definitely different kind of league, right? Like, honestly, a completely different kind of thing. But we'll have to see. I think that the game is probably going fine. I have no, when you have something like this, yes, they do like the tracking normally, right? They kind of like motion capture different hockey players, do different things. They'll get obviously the broadcast and stuff like that. But if you're thinking of games that would probably get affected by what's going on around the world, right? A lot of it probably is if you had to do literal motion capture. So if you're doing cutscenes for games, if you're even doing like dialogue stuff, if people have to kind of set up like a recording booth, like in their basement, right? Different actors and actresses. So that's really where we're seeing a lot of things being affected. Obviously, the working from home part, and we know obviously these guys are based, I believe, in Vancouver, right? So yes, different areas of the world have been hit in a different way, and some companies have handled it better than others. I don't doubt that the game isn't ready. I don't doubt that they can't get this game out by the end of this year. I just, am not expecting it September anymore. September this year is going to be really weird. Normally in September is when we start to really get more games. This year it's pretty much just going to be like Marvel's Avengers. Cyberpunk got delayed out of that month, so I really don't think, again, normally FIFA and NHL are both in the first half. Sometimes I believe FIFA either last year or 2 years ago was actually the very end of September. So, but again, in September is normally when we get 2 of the 3 sports games. So this year I feel like is going to be very, very different. We're probably not getting it. I would honestly assume, if I had to predict, I would say NHL probably is somewhere in October this year. Now again, does it make sense with the Stanley Cup if they try to award it at the end of September and say, okay, hey, this is when we're also going to release the game? I think that does make sense. So I wouldn't be shocked, but I also am not expecting going into these last, remaining summer months and then into the fall, I wouldn't be expecting the game coming out in September. I think it's going to be a little later than that. But I mean, it's about time we see it. You know what I mean? I know with sports games, especially like this sports game, especially with NHL, if you want to know what's going on, you got to go in the forums. You have to go looking for the news, right? You have to really look at that studio and follow people there on Twitter, right, in order to kind of get stuff. They're always very quiet on NHL. And I always think NHL is actually a pretty solid franchise. It absolutely has a ton of problems. I'm very, very vocal on the problems NHL has, but it's easily my favorite sport. It's easily my favorite sporting game. And even though they do get a lot of features kind of dead last out of all these 3, I think it's overall really, really solid. It's just they are quiet, and so it's weird in a situation like this when they're even more so, right? When we're already a month past when we would normally hear about this game. I think something's got to be coming, right? I think you probably have to talk about it by the end of July, early August, and especially, again, with NHL coming back. And this is this will kind of depend on if this video ages well or not, right? When the NHL season kind of resumes, when they get into the playoffs, whether that, again, is the very end of July or early August, is that when they choose to kind of pair, hey, okay, the actual hockey, like when they're actually on the ice, that is back, and now we're ready to talk about our game. Do they kind of pair it that way? I think it would go over pretty well, because it's interesting. Do you make a sports game, or when you're promoting it, do you promote a sports game for the just normal gamers? And I think you do to a certain extent, but you're also doing it to the audience of that sport. And so when the sport is inactive, when nothing's going on, is it harder to kind of talk about that? I feel like it is. I feel like that's kind of why for FIFA, maybe FIFA is being promoted in other places of the world, right? Maybe that is happening with Madden. Obviously, it's being pushed very, very heavily here, and that's because football, is going to get started, relatively soon. So we'll have to see how they handle hockey. I'm not worried. I'm just, again, we're getting close. I kind of want to hear about what are the 3-4 bullet points that they're going to try and fix this year. How will next gen, like, is this going to be, again, it's going to kind of be like a cross-gen game. How well is that going to work out? I want to see real improvements. I don't think we'll actually get real improvements until next year. NHL, like 22, I don't think we'll get anything until, but we'll have to see when we get this stuff. So, guys, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? What are you expecting from NHL 21 this year? When do you think we're going to see it? When do you think the game is going to release? All those questions, let me know in the comments. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed, have the bell icon turned on so you know when these videos go up. And I cover, obviously, a ton of games on this channel. Obviously, I don't talk about the NHL all that much, but I love this game franchise, and so every year I normally make quite a few videos on it. So as we get closer, as we hear more stuff on NHL 21, I'll definitely be covering when the game comes out. I'll be doing the same thing, okay? So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.